Hello everyone. In this video we are going to learn how to map out the joints in our arm. So why do we need to know this? Well, what happens when we learn is that oftentimes our brain starts to send a bunch of signals out at once to figure out what we should do. Normally this is not such a problem until at least we get to a point when we're trying to do too much at once. And in our modern era where we have too much to do as of yesterday, it's so easy to get caught up in this. And so when we learn where our joints are at, it's not that we have to think about them every second that we move, but if we are really tense, then this might be a great opportunity to think about, hey, I'm really tight in this spot. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. The first thing I'd like you to do is find the beginning of your arm. And where that is if you find your collarbone, where your collar is, you can start to feel the bone and see if you can feel it all the way from the shoulder into the middle of your body. And once you do that, take your index finger and your middle finger and create a pathway for the bone. And you can see you can kind of get in between your bone. Then with your thumb, put it at the edge of your collarbone. This is where your collarbone meets your chest bone. And what you're going to do is just kind of lift your shoulder and make that joint move. Yes, this is where your arm begins, in the middle of your body. Yeah, and so this is how we get our collarbone and chest bone joint to move, by lifting our shoulder and kind of rotating it around. Now there's another way we can make this move. This time, think about lifting your fingertips. And notice it has a much different feel. This is the concept that we're going to use as we play guitar. We're going to be letting our arm follow the fingertips, just like our head leads our body. Okay, so that's the first one. Next one is finding where the collarbone ends, and that's like makes this kind of sharp curve out here, and you'll feel a knob on the top of your shoulder. That's the end of your collarbone where it meets your shoulder blade. So what you're holding here is the top of your shoulder blade as it meets your collarbone. Cool. Now go ahead and find the back of your shoulder blade and notice how it responds to your arm as it follows your fingertips. You can also kind of like swing your arm from there. Notice one is kind of a dead feeling versus following your fingertips has a very alive feeling. Okay, so that's the back of our shoulder blade. Now to find the front of our shoulder blade, find that knob up at the top there and come on in here, and you'll find kind of a hard spot in where you can move your arm following the fingertips, right? And notice that it responds kind of similar to the shoulder blade in the back. It's not moving like crazy here in your rotator cuff. But yeah, this is the front of your shoulder blade. And if you can try, you can actually hold the whole thing, back, top, and front together. Okay, so back, top, front of the shoulder blade. Now, this is the inside of the shoulder blade where it meets our big arm bone, deep in the armpit. And the thing is, we can't even get to it. There's so much muscle and space. But yeah, just reach way up there. It feels a little uncomfortable, but don't worry, you're not hurting yourself. This is where you meet, where your big arm meets, I should say, your shoulder blade. This is like if you're throwing a ball, or if you're playing tennis, or even swimming. This is where a lot of movement comes from. All right, we're about halfway there. We're going to follow the big arm bone out to the widest part of our elbow. At this widest part of our elbow, that is the end of the big arm bone, also known as the humerus. And it is the axis for our forearm. The funny thing is, though, the funny bone that you hit is not the humerus. And it's not humerus when you hit your funny bone either. Ha, little anatomy joke. But this bone here, the one that's doing the moving, that's called the ulna. That's the bone that is your mechanical lever in your forearm. So you can trace this out your, funny bone, which is the ulna, the mechanical lever that does the moving in the elbow, out to this little knob on the pinky side. This is the end of the ulna. And what's interesting about this, and you can see it from here, is that bone is the axis for your hand opening and closing. And I like how I did that. You can see that very clearly. This bone on your thumb side is the end of the radius. It's called the radius because it moves around the ulna. So those are the two bones and how they orient with each other in your forearm. Okay, after our forearm bones, you have those two knobs there, we find our wrist. This is just right underneath that line in your palm and also right above it. These are what are called the carpals, and they make up our wrist, and they allow us to do this and that. So that kind of goodbye, and that goodbye, and the hello, I should say. The pretty wave, that's our radius moving around our ulna, but this one and this one, that's our wrist. Then just past our wrist, we can find the base of our fingers. These are called the metacarpals. And you can notice that they actually have a little bit of movement in there, especially when you do that motion. Then you have the first set of joints on your lifeline. These are not joints here. This is where the palm ends. Then your next set of joints there. So first set, second, and then third. The thumb just has two. It has one there at where your palm ends, and then it has one more there. Okay, so those are all the joints in your arm. And you can do this quickly on the other side. Just start on your fingertips. Find the first set of knuckles, second set of knuckles, third set in your fingers, the base of all your fingers, the metacarpals they're called, the wrist here. Then you've got these two knobs. The thumb side knob is the radius, as you can see, it's the one moving around. The pinky side is the one that is moved around. It's the axis. This is the one that does the moving on the thumb. Pinky is the axis. Pinky leads you your funny bone, which here is the bone that moves around the axis of the big arm bone. That leads you deep into your armpit, where your big arm bone meets the shoulder blade. And then your shoulder blade has a back, a top where you have that knob, and a front, which is kind of inside, like not on that meaty part, but just inside there. That's the front of your shoulder blade. Then you trace your collarbone out to the middle of your body. And out here, you let your fingertips lead your arm. Okay, so that's a very thorough review of the joints. I hope that helps.